Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host for the evening. I am the Assistant Director of NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness North Carolina. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community around the topic of mental health. Tonight, we'll be looking at that intersection of addiction and mental health and the related area of trauma. Of course, the lingo surrounding health is always changing. The new word these days is substance use disorder. So if I mention substance use, that's what I'm talking about. It's AKA addiction. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, researchers have found about half the individuals who wrestle with addiction also are struggling simultaneously with a mental health disorder and vice versa. So along with substance use disorder, I may live with anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and the reverse is true. So how are these two related, these two things? When we live with anxiety or depression, which a lot of us do, incidentally, we may be drawn to things like alcohol, marijuana, pills, whatever, to help ourselves feel better. We need some relief, and it's less embarrassing, especially for young folks, to have a few too many drinks once in a while than it is to see a psychiatrist. We call that self-medicating. Some of us are more likely to wind up addicted to our substances. Why? Well, it's based on a combination of genes and life circumstances, that old nature versus nurture conversation. So after months or years of self-medicating, we may find ourselves addicted to our reefer, our alcohol. Then we're stuck because that pleasure center of our brains has been hijacked by the substance. Some people are more predisposed to that than others. And I start out enjoying my drinks. Then I'm really not able to have fun unless I'm drinking. Then I can't get out of bed until I've got my vodka in. So it's a pretty big bait and switch. Bad deal, addiction is. Then we have trauma, when that dark underbelly of life delivers a blow that we're not quite able to handle. It kind of blows our nervous system out of the park. Trauma makes anyone more likely to end up with a mental health condition or a substance use disorder. Our guests tonight, Donna Carrington and Jerlano Bell of Durham, will be sharing their insights and their stories on these topics in just a few minutes. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guests. Partway through, we'll show our video of the week, and then we'll be spending time with you, members of our virtual studio audience, and taking your questions. I want to start out by thanking our funders. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Division of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services through the Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. We are very grateful, as always, for their guidance and support. So moving right along, Donna Carrington is the Executive Director of the Community Empowerment Fund. It covers both Orange and Durham counties, and there she is able to help and advocate for people whose stories are just like hers. Jerlano Bell owns Visions Photography and Broadcasting Productions. They cover the Triangle area. In his spare time, he travels to support the causes he cares about. Welcome, guests.
Thank you.
All right, and you can go in whichever order you'd like. We always like to know the background of our guests, so tell us your story in a nutshell.
Sure, I can go first. I come from a family of both sides of my families are coal miners. So I grew up some in Durham, some in West Virginia. Um, I think with having a coal mining family, there's all different levels around poverty and trauma that have played out in our family. My family moved to Durham when I was 9 months old. My father was an engineer. My mother was a labor and delivery nurse. My mother struggled all of my life with substance use disorder. She also was diagnosed bipolar and so struggled with both of those all of my life. I didn't find out about them until I was probably in my 20s. I knew there was something, I just didn't know what it was. Um, in that time, also, I was struggling with my own levels of mental illness. Um, Starting at about 12, I had episodes of being suicidal, being very depressed, was a lot of times dismissed as, growing pains, and she's just moody, just all of these things. I think it culminated into something pretty serious when I was in college. I did have issues with alcohol in college, but also started to really have issues with depression.
Mm.
I had my first child at 24 and had a severe bout of postpartum depression that was undiagnosed. Had my second child a year and 20 days later. Was still probably in postpartum depression from the first one, and it got worse. And so had a series of having postpartum depression with each one. I have four children. They are 27, 26, 21, and 17.
Mm.
Um, my acknowledgement about having mental health happened with my 17-year-old as a baby. Had another bout of postpartum depression, but also she was a child that is legally blind, and before the age of 2 had 10 surgeries. And I did not cope with that very well. I remember I had 2 weeks of solid just crying. Imagine what it's like to walk around your house and you're just crying. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, but you're crying. At that point was my first starting to seek out help about by my mental health. Was diagnosed with depression and put on some medications that sent me into mania.
Mm.
First bouts of mania. Stayed up for 5 days.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know, my I always tell people the extremes of things have happened to me with this. Um, and so went through a series of figuring that out. I was hospitalized 3 different times. Some of it was medication issues, some of it was to help alleviate the mania. Um, some of it was just to get myself together. I was trying to raise children by myself and trying to deal with my own mental health. And then they were also having mental health issues. I finally was able to get to a place of um, taking DBT. I took it 3 times. First 2 times I thought it was junk. This last time really worked well because I learned to use it in my own life.
Mm.
And when I learned to actually apply the things I was learning, it finally made sense.
Mhm.
And I have been an advocate of that since then. But also around that time was the time of when I joined NAMI and started doing things. Started wanting to facilitate um, things like peer to peer. And my first class was basics because at that time my children were emerging with mental health issues also, and just really loved it. Just really was glad to meet people, and wanted to be of help. And so I really took to learning as many offerings as I could and what I could teach. And um, it has really been very grounding for me to do that.
Mhm.
Um, because I get to see other people get those aha moments of when it all clicks together and they understand who they are and what they need and how they need. And oh, this is how I show up in the world. Um, and that's a beautiful thing, and not an experience that everyone gets. So I am done with my story. Jerlano, it's your turn.
Appreciate it, Miss Donna. Appreciate it, Miss Peg. My name is Jerlano Bell. I was born in Washington D.C. I'm a parent of I got a sister, so it's two of us. Well, four as a family, and yeah, mental health. My father is schizophrenic, bipolar, so I was through that. He was highly abusive. I know what beatings are as a child when you do something wrong, so you're trying to be corrective, but he did over. He punched me like a man, and He got drunk a lot of times, and he probably did other drugs I didn't know about. Some of the drugs I did know about. And when at the age about 12, I started drinking, and at first it was just with the guys and something to do. He was the man. You drink or smoke a little weed, but after a while, I started doing it too. I was by myself. I had to have some beer. I had to smoke some weed. I had to have some kind of high. Just for some reason, I didn't understand it. I got tired of the abuse. My father and my mother wasn't listening to me too many times, and I felt like I was alone. And when I turned 18, graduating, I moved down to North Carolina, and in Durham, it didn't really get any better. The drugs were there, the alcohol was still there, the environment wasn't any better then. So, and it really got worse, and I started hanging in the streets, hanging with people I shouldn't be hanging with, and I just and I had a violent temper. I was extremely just. I think saying I had a small case of I was diagnosed as schizophrenic and bipolar and maybe depressant. They tried to give me medication for it, but I was taking it. I didn't like how I felt, so I stopped taking the medication. And I had my own medication, which was street drugs. So I'd rather do that anyway, even though it wasn't making me better. So after about years being in Durham, North Carolina, and just doing things I shouldn't be doing, time it being the 30s, I felt that I was missing out in life. Time was just going by. People had kids, people got married, people moved, and a lot of things that happened, it felt like I was going slow motion. Things were changing around me, and I was still doing the same thing I did 20, 30 years ago. And I felt bad. I don't have a life of my own. I didn't have my own identity. So I finally decided to get off drugs, off of alcohol, decided to stay off the street. So I went to support groups. I went to the public assistance in Durham County in Durham, North Carolina, and they took me to different people that did peer support, and I started going there, and they started handling, taking me to different places to get insurance, just handling to get different resources. So I was going to support group like about at least about 3 times, maybe 4 times a week, and to handle my mental health and my drug abuse. And it took me probably about 5 to 6 years to really get off of alcohol and drugs altogether, because I still had different people that was in that lifestyle, and I was still attracted to it. So I had to separate myself all together with the people who wants that lifestyle, and then for me to be in a better environment. So yeah, now I'm 43. Not only that I took the steps to improve my mental health, took the steps to improve my drug habit, I have a program. I have people I can call and talk to. I go to a meeting once a week for drug abuse and mental health, and I stay honest in where I'm at. I don't lie. If I feel a certain type of way, I be truthful and honest as much as I can and how much as possible, just to make sure I have. Because I start a day a certain way doesn't mean it could end up. It could still end up good. I don't have to be stuck in that moment. I can go on and make steps to improve that situation and still go out and be productive in my life. So now I'm an advocate. I'm a certified peer support specialist. I'm a photographer, amongst other things, and I've been going to at least about 3 cities advocating for the social justice. Um, there's a lot of people with mental health. There's a lot of people that's still in active drug addiction, and they need help. Some don't know how to help themselves, so sometimes they need somebody to just talk to. They have a story, and they sometimes they just want you to listen, and you don't have to say anything, and then let them get that feelings out. You know what I'm saying? That hurt. You know what I'm saying? And they can start the healing process. So this is this is where I'm at, and I'm an advocate. I'm a peer support. I love what I do, and while I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm improving my life as well amongst with others. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you both so much for being here and sharing your stories tonight. One thing I love about NAMI is that we can all raise our hands and say me too. So I also have struggled, with some trauma, and I'm in AA, so we're all in it together. But I love the fact that you both have had moments of real hopelessness, and you're both kind of the boss now, which is great. You're a business owner and an executive director. So congratulations. That leads to our next question. You've both had your share of tough times. Most certainly, you've accomplished some great things. What are you most proud of?
Miss Donna.
I think, I thought about this question. I was like, there's probably 25 things I'm most proud of. But my 17-year-old said, you are most proud of our family. I think the thing that I think about being most proud of is coming from a family of substance use disorder, coming from a family of mental health, and thinking about how I was able to break a legacy of where people didn't talk about it and didn't do anything about it. I have an uncle on my father's side, his oldest brother, that struggled with schizophrenia all his life. And a few years back, my dad went to his funeral and found out that there were 27 children that we didn't know about that in his illness happened.
Oh,
And I think being able to break a legacy of where my children understand when to be skillful and when to ask for help. They understand their own illnesses, they understand mine. We all know when each other's not doing well and have that ability to talk about it and do something about it. So yeah, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is being able to break legacies.
very powerful.
Um,
Jerlano?
being most proud. I don't know if I have a single one. Just knowing that I can tell my story, and someone can relate to me, and I can make a difference. You know, and I see a lot of people hurting out there. I see that people just coming from streets or coming. They may have been locked up out of from drug addiction, and they trying to get used to just being in life, and they dealing with mental health as well, and they in a hard place. And I can maybe since someone said I said something to them that made a difference. I don't know exactly what I said, but it seemed it made it a little easier. You know what I'm saying? It's still hard for them to adapt. What the society or this life it has to offer. You know what I'm saying? It's a process, but just knowing that you could help somebody to make that process easier. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. And I have a girlfriend now, and she has a newborn. Her daughter has a newborn. She call her baby. Yeah, like I'm the grandpa, so you know what I mean. So I guess I'm taking that role, and you know what I'm saying. I'm just loving life. I just love that even with my mental health, the way I was about 25 years ago and where I am now, I think think for everything that I have and that I accomplished and achieved, and that I can actually help somebody else do the same thing. That is hope. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what they're going through, that they have hope to actually be successful in what they're trying to be in their life. Period.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a beautiful thing. It's wonderful that you have a grandbaby. And I think in different ways, you've both made a point about how important it is to feel heard. That Donna, you're the first one who's shining the light on certain topics in your family, and you're being heard. You're introducing that space. And Jerlano, you've allowed people to feel heard when they tell you their story, and you don't have to say a lot. If people just feel like you hear their song, that's just so powerful. That opens up doors right away. So thank you for all that you're doing. So what did your dark days look like?
My dark days looked like um one of the things that I've always been really honest about is how much I do not like mania. I remember having many doctors tell me most people like mania. I hate it. I hated it because it made me feel the most out of control. Because interestingly, in my depression, there was a level of control for me, and I could feel more in control. But when mania was happening and I wasn't sleeping and I couldn't control why my brain just kept going and going and going and why I kept doing these things, and um that was probably the darkest for me because I didn't know what to do. Um and I was an adult taking care of children, and I knew I was unwell, but I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what to do with the children if I had to go into the hospital. I knew it was heading that way. I just was not able to sleep and do that, corral that myself.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think I was really, really scared of what would happen with my children. Um, so yeah, I think that was probably the darkest for me.
Mm. That makes sense. Yeah, that's very tough. Not sleeping is the worst.
Oh my gosh. I can do a whole lot of things and with a whole lot of sleep, but none. Nope. No.
Exactly. Wonderful comment from the chat. You are inspiring, being so successful and giving back to help others who are struggling. I am in awe.
Oh.
Yeah, what you both are saying is very powerful. So, Jerlano.
Wow. Before I moved to North Carolina, I was still in the Washington area. I was living in Maryland before I moved down to North Carolina, and this this is my dark space, and I felt alone. Like many times, like I'm hanging with the friends, trying to show off so they could like me, and the many times I'm at home just by myself, just looking at the wall. You know what I'm saying? That looking at TV was by myself. I just felt alone. I know Miss Donna said she thought I had bad thoughts, and man, it was tough. Just like how I didn't think I even meant to be born on this planet. You know what I'm saying? And I felt so bad. I was trying to reach out to my parents, and they wasn't listening. I didn't feel I didn't have anybody at all but myself, and I think that's why my mental health got worse because all the friend I had was myself, and that is the worst feeling I could ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, that isolation, I think so many of us feel that when we're in our darkest days because people don't understand mental health. I certainly didn't hear that growing up, and most of us don't. I think it was NAMI and peer centers that sort of taught me that language of recovery and hope. And it's a pretty dark place before you get there. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we know there's overlap between trauma, addiction, and mental health. Which was most significant in your life? How did they sort of interact?
I think for me it was trauma, and it was both trauma and mental health, but also the substance abuse because of having a parental figure that had the substance abuse. And I think with that, it was knowing something was wrong, but not knowing what it was. So not having a name to it, but knowing what it was. There was a lot of trauma in my family. We were coming from poverty. Um, my parents' relationship was very abusive. My mother was very abusive to me. Um, because I think with untreated mental health and with substance abuse, if you're not willing to do that work and deal with it, sometimes people, like I was as a child who was very curious, um, would do things like be close to where her drug stash was, and she would get angry with me, and I would not know why. And so yeah, I think back on those events and think about how traumatic that was as a child, to literally think your mother hated you.
Mm.
And it was a whole separate other problems that were being dealt with, but you didn't know because you weren't being told that information. And then to grow up, have your own set of children and be in mental health crisis yourself, and trying not to perpetuate all of that on your children, but also not knowing what to do with how you were feeling and what this is, and going through the things of, is this hereditary, and all of those things. um so yeah, I think for me there was a lot of trauma in, one, not knowing, and two, the not knowing something was wrong, but not having language to it, and not having access to resources to be able to deal with it.
Mm, that makes sense.
My trauma was the greatest that my father, like I said, he had mental health. He was in drug abuse, and he took his physical abuse on his only son, and it, like me, just hit me like a child, and the man, just being punched in the face and stuff like that. And I don't know, his moods just changed so drastically. I didn't understand what schizophrenia was. I didn't know what bipolar was. I was a child, I don't know those things. I'm not gonna understand why my father, all of a sudden, he has a smile on his face, but now he wants to hurt me like I'm his enemy. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand that at all. And then for a child, it's kind of hard to understand something like that. And many times, just trying to get away from him, I just leave the house for hours at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and just to make sure he don't touch me. But it wasn't better when I came back. So like, just the trauma is being just I'm always having anxiety attacks, watching my back, seeing somebody was trying to hurt me, what I'm saying, always being, in a way that I didn't trust anyone.
Mm,
That's I had to deal with that for many years. The untrustworthy, it's just I can't trust her, I can't trust him. I don't like this, I don't like that. And I had to get some kind of help with that. It took years to get out of that state. Even when I
mm,
started being in recovery of my mental health and my own drug abuse, it took years for me to improve my thoughts of this. The whole world is trying to hurt me.
mm-hmm. Sure. I can understand in both your cases personalizing those situations very deeply and just totally internalizing that. And yeah, that's what happens when the adult has some kind of illness and there's the sort of this wake of difficulty and pain behind them, and the children just are the target of that. So I'm I'm just so glad that you both made it through and you've come so far, and you can now share your stories. Um, so Donna, your bio mentioned, and you mentioned earlier, that you came from two West Virginia coal mining families, and that really struck me. The significance of that it was one of the first things you share in your bio, and also your ancestors worked incredibly hard in really dangerous and dark conditions. How did that sort of trickle through the rest of your family?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So as I started on my own journey of dealing with my mental health, but also thinking about, some of the things with my mental health and trauma, and thinking about what those experiences were like for my mother and father. And I did a lot of research around what it must have been like for them, and realized that, intergenerational trauma
Mm-hmm.
is something that plays out in my family very largely. Having these very, very dangerous professions that every day the balance of your life is just sad. Am I going to make it through today? Am I going to make it out of this mine today? As I grew up and seeing, stories of where mines have collapsed and things, and realizing what must that be like to have to live with that every single day, as to whether your husband is going to come home, um, or that you're going to be able to survive. And so what does the stress of that do to how you operate in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Add that to families. So my mom had 9 brothers and sisters. So these were not small families. Um, and the stress of having all of those people. My dad had 2 brothers, but my father's mother always wanted a girl. So they always had lots of foster children around. And so taking on these large amounts of large families to add to that stress. And the area where my family is from is very closed in. So for those of you that don't know about West Virginia, um, the neighborhoods are called hollers. So the same street you go in is the same street you go out. It kind of feels like you're in this caged area. And so where my family is from, not only was it that experience, but it was racially split. So the side that my family lived on, there was all Black people. If you went in the same side and went to the left, it was all white people. The houses looked different. There was grass on the white people's side, all of those things. And it was interesting that I never noticed those things as much time as I spent there until I was 23. And someone said to me, Donna, you realize that the makeup of West Virginia is 96% white. And I said, where's them people at? Because I don't see the people before. It was very shocking to me because that was not my experience. Um, and so, yeah, I had to think about the context of all of that together. But also, I think what I noticed that did in our family was there was this incredible, incredible work ethic. I think sometimes to the detriment of us. That is like, you got to show up, you got to do this thing, you're not allowed to fail. Mm. And I've seen that in my father. I've seen that in my brother. I saw that in my mother. I see that in myself. Yeah. And so I think that's the way that it has played out in our family. And I think the way that I've combated that is to have a different perspective and be able to talk about that with my children so that they don't feel that. Because that's a heavy burden, a very, very heavy burden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very intrigued by that part of your bio. And the stereotypical West Virginia coal miner is white. And I did some research and it said that the Black coal miners had the most dangerous jobs, probably for the least pay. And I thought, well, that would have to also add to that ripple effect of stress and anxiety and difficulty
and they end up with the most health conditions. So sure. They're the ones that have Black lung. My grandfather had Black lung and actually died really early. He had Black lung and Parkinson's. And so they're the ones that are usually dealing with the coal mining benefits and things like that because their conditions are so severe.
Sure. Wow. Well, thank you for educating us about that. Mm-hmm. And Jerlano, you traveled to Minneapolis for the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's death, and your photo was prominently featured in news coverage of that event. What was it like to visit George Floyd Square and end up with your image in the media?
Wow.
And I'm going to show that picture if you don't mind.
Yeah, you can show the picture. It was incredible. Wow. I took the plane there and the plane was only 2 hours. Thank God for that. Is when you go, this is my experience. But when I got off that plane and finally got into the city, I felt it was an aura about Minneapolis. It's different. I know every city's not the same. That's the far Midwest. So some people call it the West Coast over there, but that's a lot of that area is like Native American land. A lot of Native Americans actually live in Minnesota. So, and actually they gave me love as well. But it's just it's I don't know. It's like a mystic thing over in Minneapolis. It's something there that I couldn't really read or really tell exactly what it was. But the energy of the people, it's always about the people. When I go to different places, they have their different language, the different lingo. They dress a certain way, they talk a certain way. But that Minneapolis, they have an energy about the people is so powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that thing what happened to George Floyd and his death, it wasn't good for anybody to be murdered. Period. But like I said, his name would not be in vain. I see his besides that poster I was throwing up. There was other people on the other side that had their own poster with George Floyd, and some people had pictures on their T-shirts and stuff like that. But his name and his face, for me, that's like an emblem of what they trying to do in this city. You know what I'm saying? Not only gaining the trust of the police department in the community, but actually joining the city to be a working condition of being productive as one unit. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of cities being split. It's not even just a racial guideline. It's about rich and poor. Who got this? Who got that? You know what I'm saying? And it got bad, not just in the United States, across the world. They going by how you look and what your status is. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But for what I see in Minneapolis, they're trying to take away these divisions, these little lines, and be saying like we all people, period. No matter how much money you got, what kind of car you drive, or a house or whatever, you know what I'm saying, what background you have, that you a person, you're an individual, you have feelings. You know what I'm saying? You have family you raise. You want to walk your dog. You want to do adventurous things outside. You maybe want to do some time in the house with the family. You maybe want to, you know what I'm saying? We all people. We might look different, but we're people. And then I see that in Minneapolis, the people told me like, we're tired of it. We don't want this no more. This thing is going on, like this hatred. He said, this is not us. You know what I'm saying? We better. There's people out there that say we're better than this. We wanted to stop. We're trying to find ways to stop it. So a lot of people is doing organizations right now to help the individuals with mental health, drug abuse. You have people going in the community. They planting flowers. They planting vegetables. They're looking for the elders to see how good they are when they, you know what I'm saying, live in their house. You know what I'm saying? They're people going out into the community looking for somebody that needs help. And not charging them a thing. They, you know what I'm saying? They might conversate, give them a little, you know, thing of information, but they actually trying. You know what I'm saying? Start somewhere. Yeah. But that thing that George Floyd, like I said, he's not gonna be in vain. He will not be in vain to my thoughts in the state of Minnesota, not just Minneapolis in the city, but the state of Minnesota. The efforts getting people to join together, period. Not just Sam will join together like, maybe next week, you know, I'm gonna give them maybe pass some water around. I'm gonna give them a poster. Nah, these are people home. They call the state of Minnesota their home. When I left, I went to my home, you know what I'm saying, in North Carolina. But this is their home. They live here. They understand that we want to make this better. We got to see what we could do to make it better. And it might take years to make it right. But at least they're trying. They're really doing the effort to make this thing possible. So that's what I got on that one.
Okay, that was beautiful. I actually got goosebumps while you were talking. Very inspiring. And I agree with you just 1000%. If people sit down in a room and can talk heart to heart, speak humbly and share their experience and just have a one-on-one or small group conversation, there will be hope. And if we focus on what good people are doing in their communities, the community gardens, the outreach, the conversations, there will be hope. If you read the headlines, there's just not a lot of hope there.
No.
Yeah. So Donna, you were nodding a lot. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think for me, what Jerlano was talking about is a lot of the work that I'm trying to have my organization do, but also just stuff that I have done myself. You know, I'm always thinking about what it must be like for people to not know if there are other people that have been through struggles like theirs, if there are other people that they can talk to or ask a question or be around that have been a little bit further than they are. There was not those people when I was going through and trying to be in recovery. And I always just wanted to be that. But also, I'm a person that likes people. Jerlano will tell you I'll talk to the fence. I just do. I'm just that kind of person. Um, but I'm always thinking about what people need. The work that I do is trying to make people financially capable. But also in that scope, it's thinking about how has trauma affected people and how is that showing up in the behaviors that they're doing. But also, how is that showing up in how they're coping? To think about someone being in housing crisis and expecting people to have this level of they're just going to do everything in the right order and be correct and all that. Who can do that? You're in crisis. There's no way. And being able to say to people that person is acting that way because they're scared. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to understand that in their fear, they're doing the things that they control. And it may not be the things that you think they ought to be doing. Okay, well, let's start from their trauma point instead of thinking about ours. But also, it is important to me for us to be an organization that's anti-racist. We are having hard conversations as staff about what that means. We are also thinking about what that means for our members. The reason why I have gotten to where I am is because we as a staff said, you know what? Our demographics are over 80% Black, and we are not representing that in our leadership. And what do we do about that? And that's where me coming into leadership came about. But also, it was a little more than that. It was thinking about being a person of lived experience of homelessness and being able to talk about that and not being afraid to talk about that and talk about the fact that I have mental health issues. I'm always talking to people about in my anxiety, these are the things I do, because none of that went away because I became an ED. I just got a little more skillful and a little more aware of what I do. And I have to pay a little more attention to it because I know that the stress of my job can make my symptoms worse. But yeah, it didn't go away. Sometimes I probably think that my job probably creates more of my anxiety than anything else. But having people that people can say, oh, that's a real person. They have a real story. They will sit down and talk to me. They want to be part of my life. They want to be part of whatever path that I need to go on to be better. Mm-hmm. Is where I want to be as a person. And I know that's where Jerlano wants to be as a person too. And when there's lots of those people and they get together, things get done. And I think that's what Jerlano is seeing in Minneapolis is there's lots of those people on the ground and they're getting together and things are getting done. And I see some of that in our local community also. It's sometimes a little harder to find, but it's there. You have to look for it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it just makes me excited to know that there are people, that's the way things are going to get done. It's going to be very grassroots on the ground. And that's a lot. And that's where NAMI is. It's very grassroots on the ground. That's how we're going to get things done. And so, yeah, a lot of the nodding was just thinking about the excitement of people just getting together and wanting to get things done and wanting things to be right.
All right. So you kind of stepped into the next question, but I'll ask it anyways in case you'd like to add some things. Tell us about your work as executive director of the Community Empowerment Fund.
Yeah. So I started out surprisingly as a part-time savings specialist coming out of being in a homeless shelter for 18 months. Imagine that. One of our co-founders, Maggie West, had written a savings position for me. She said because we had a class back then that was a group class. And we talked a lot about savings. And she said, I love the way you talk about savings being that thing that can be this trajectory that changes your life. And I was like, no way. So when she offered it to me and was like, I want you to interview this, I said no. It took a year for her to convince me. Because at that point in time, I'm thinking, I've just been homeless. She's not going to want me. This is crazy. Um, and when she convinced me and I started with the organization, it was exactly the thing that I should have been doing. Um, and so I started to lead the opportunity class is what we called it then. But also I was helping us to make sure that we were helping to instill this process of people wanting to save for emergency cost and things that they wanted. And so my next position was thinking about um, people being stable in housing. Having had gone through homelessness twice, it was really important to me to be really thinking about how do we stabilize people? How do we help them take these traumas, take their mental health, all of these things that have happened to them, and figure out a way for them to be housed and to continue to be well. And not only to think about that initial housing from actual literal homelessness, but what is it like to take that path all the way through to home ownership? That was my dream. I was like, we can do this. People can own homes and have been literal homeless. I did a pilot because Maggie fully believed in me and was like, okay, if you can do this. And I did a pilot of just that. And it was very successful. And so I realized that what people needed was support. They needed someone like me to be able to say, this is hard and you can still do it. They needed someone to see them in their best and in their worst and still care for them that same way. And that has been a beautiful thing. I've seen us do great work with people in the community that the community gave up on. I remember I had a member that everyone in the community gave up on that had substance use disorder. And they were like, there's no way you're going to get her housed. Okay, don't tell me no way, because I don't accept that at all. And I'm not saying that it wasn't hard. We had to have some real come to Jesus moments and some conversations. But the thing that we built was a relationship and trust so that we could have those moments and could have those conversations. And I could understand what her past was, what the traumas were. I could understand that how her substance use played into that. I could also understand what she wanted for herself, and she wanted a place. And I said, okay, well, if that's what you want, we're going to get you there. I might not be sure how we're going to do it right now, but we're going to get you there. And we did. And I think people were just very shocked and said, what did you do? I listened. And I didn't give up. Even at times of where she would drive me absolutely batty, I didn't give up. Because if someone had been there for me and given up, would I be where I am now? I don't know. And so she needed that person in her corner, and I was that person. And what I realized is that that's just what people need. They need relationships that they can trust. They need relationships that they can show up in their good and in their bad, which may mean that you sometimes will get someone that is dealing with their substance abuse. You may get someone that is not doing well in their mental health. You don't get to give up. You make a relationship with someone, you don't get to give up. And I think when you have that intent, you're going to wade through it. And so that's where our organization is. We're wading through it in some of the ways. I'm very nerdy. People know this about me. So I'm the person that knows all of the information before things happen. And I'm like, okay, we got to prepare for this thing because it's going to happen. with this eviction moratorium that has happened recently, I was really surprised that it got extended. So, and I said it's not going. If it does, it's not going to be extended for long. And I was right. And so we are working in a world of we're preparing for people to be in a level of crisis that's going to be hard. Mm. But the people that are engaging with our organization are like, wow, y'all really want to be there for people. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. Because you can do a lot when you trust people and understand that we're there to support you on whatever journey you want, not what we think you should do.
Mm. I have to say, I knew you both would be good speakers, but you're kind of blowing me away. I really liked your statement about she needed someone to see her on her good days and her bad days and care about her the same way. We all need that. Yeah, that was really lovely, really well said. Jerlano, you were nodding a lot. What do you have to add?
I tell you what, like when I was doing my support groups, and I still am, with my mental health and my substance abuse, I know I was giving some people a hard time. It was these two ladies. They kind of a tall group. I ain't gonna say the name, but I gave them HE hockey sticks. Yeah, I know I did. Give them attitude. Like, who are you? You don't talk to me. You know what I mean? And one of the ladies like, no, I ain't talking to him. I'm gonna stay away from him. And to this day, she's my best friend. But the other one's like, I ain't care about what you saying. Yeah, anything else you want to tell me? Okay, I'm doing this. You gonna help me or what? And she came up for me like that. I'm like, she don't know who I am. Who are you? But after that day, I apologized. You know what I'm saying? I was mad about something else and try to take it out on her. It wasn't right that I did that, but at least I acknowledged it. And to this day, I'm seeing her grow. You know what I'm saying? And watching us grow together. You know what I'm saying? We're friends as well. I got both the ladies as my friend. And I just love the fact that they were being real and gave me truth. You know what I'm saying? They didn't say, "Oh, hi, bye, everything gonna be fine," and blah. Just do this and it'll go away. Like, no, the pain just don't go away. You know what I'm saying? Whoever say that, you're not lying to no one. You're lying to yourself. That pain and hurt is deep. You know what I'm saying? That pain I had that was embedded in me for years. You know what I'm saying? I heard it day and night. It took me years to get out that hurt. You know what I'm saying? I look back at that hurt, but it doesn't affect my life. You know what I'm saying? It improves me. And I remember where I was at too, so I know where I'm gonna go. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if anybody can hear what I'm saying is how your life was before does not dictate who you're gonna be in the future at all. It's what you wanted to be. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that gave me power. When them ladies gave me that truth, when I see how these ladies are, they standing as clean as a queen. I love them. You know what I'm saying? In my heart. You know what I'm saying? They give me hugs. You know what I'm saying? Even when I didn't want a hug, when I was angry at the world, they gave their heart to me. And I'm not gonna forget that, not ever.
Mm. Well, another beautifully spoken story and sharing. What's really coming through to me from both of you is how valuable it is when we can be authentic, even if it's ugly for a minute, even if we're disagreeing. If I'm telling you why I'm upset and I'm willing to sit and have that whole conversation, that shows how much I care. It's real easy to say, okay, I understand how you feel. I have to go now. It's really easy to keep that stuff on the surface. But if I'm willing to work through that deeper process with you, that says a lot. That says a lot. So when people give me crap, I try to take it in the best light I can. All right. Well, I'm learning a lot tonight from both of you. Jerlano, tell us about your photography business.
Yeah, it's been in existence as a legal for the last 20. It started in 2016, but legally 2018, so it was official. And it was slow at first. I was looking for jobs, and I was trying to be a freelancer, and asked the different. I don't know why I asked Miss Donna for photography. I know I was asking a whole lot of people. I had at first I started off with a small camera. It was a Sony, one of those Sony snapshots. It was 35 millimeter, and it did video as well. And that was my first camera. And so now I have another Sony, but it's a more expensive one, and I got better lenses. Working with a 58 and 107 millimeter, and it's just my growth. You know what I'm saying? Even though I was trying to struggle to have my own employment and make my own wages, it was hard. You know what I'm saying? You working for yourself. Somebody, I thought it was gonna be easy, but I'm not knowing that most of the work I have to do myself. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? And my mental health, even though it was there at the time, I was struggling with it. It improved my mental health. It improved me to actually work hard for something even more than I'm used to doing. You know what I'm saying? Because usually, if things don't go my way, I like, nah, I'm done with it. I would have been done with vision a long time ago before it was done with me. If I didn't try to actually create something and try to not stop with what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? To actually believe in what I'm doing. And it took years to actually establish something in what my business do to now. You know what I'm saying? But after a while, people started to understand what I'm capable of doing, my work ethic, that I get paid on a regular basis, but they know that they get me, they get good product, they get good business. So actually, that's how what I do, make sure they understand that I'm about trustworthy. I'm about how I do conduct myself. And what I'm saying, and I like to be people present. I like to see different things. For me, like through the lenses is art. I see art in anything. It doesn't matter look ugly to you. It might be beautiful to me. And maybe that's I might see, I see things in abstract, So I don't know if that makes sense, but I see things different to what people think they see when they see a piece of object or anything they think is not worth looking at. So I try to use that to the best of my ability and to just keep on growing. So thank you.
All right. So you do commercial work, you do weddings. Who's your typical client?
I haven't did a wedding yet. I did real estate commercial work, but not actual like TV commercial. But I'm not saying it's not gonna happen. I'm not saying I'm not gonna do it. But if I get that offer, yeah, I would love to do some TV work and actually have a wedding. I would love to do my first wedding. So maybe someone will bless me with it. So I'm waiting till that day.
All right. I'll pray you don't get Bridezilla. All right. So final question, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope? People. I think every day I meet individuals who, when you listen to their story, sometimes you wonder, how in the world did you get up this morning? And there's lots of them all the time. And as long as I have a world of where I can meet people and they're doing things and they're trying to do things, and yeah, they may fail sometimes and sometimes they're successful, but as long as I can have that, I'm always going to be hopeful because that's what's going to change things is people being able to do not only their own individual feats, but feats together. And so, yeah, I think every day that I have the ability to talk to someone new, to talk to someone that I've known forever and they've accomplished something, I'm always going to be hopeful.
Jerlano?
I think I relate to Miss Donna. It is the people, like for me is this will come from my own aspect. I get strength from other people. When some days I might feel down, whatever, and someone that has that strong spirit, what I'm saying? Like I could talk to them, what I'm saying? They could relate to what I'm saying or how I'm feeling at that certain situation. And then if I have a problem, that I always have a solution. I always could work it out some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? It might not be exactly as I'm looking to work it out. It might not be the way Mr. Bell wants to work it out with, but it works out itself some kind of way. that I have hope in the people I'm surrounded with, the positive environment, that, you know what I'm saying, that I can get through anything. You know what I'm saying, that I can start my day and feel good about it.
Mm, I like that. So definitely, I think I see hope in other people as well. And sometimes that's where my higher power, or that's where I see some kind of positive energy or positive messaging come to me sometimes is through other people. So I have the same experience. And now it's ready time for us to transition. We're going to wrap up the interview portion of our show. Before we do, I'm going to give a big shout out to those working behind the scenes: psychiatric nurse Gail Pruitt, who's on the chat box and Facebook Live, Executive Director Gary Kreitz, also on the chat box, and thanks both of you for always being there. Of course, huge gratitude to our guests for spending your evening with us. For our video of the week, we've got a lighthearted video about dogs in the water. I figure with the extreme heat here in North Carolina today and the heat wave out west, this will be a nice change of pace for everybody.
Hop in.
All right. Well, we try to do something lighthearted in the middle since we tend to cover life's heavier topics. So dogs and water, gotta love it. Now it's time to take questions from you all, members of our virtual studio audience. We'll go on as long as we're still having questions to answer. And I see we've got a couple lined up already, one from Gary. How do you both manage to keep such a spirit of optimism in a world that is so filled with pain?
I don't know that I would call it optimism because every day isn't that. I think I have to keep a perspective that I'm always growing. And as long as I keep that perspective that I'm always growing, that I have things to learn, that there are experiences and people that I have not met yet that will influence my life, um, and that I just want to keep trying. There, not to say that there aren't days of where it's a harder struggle. I can say, being a new ED and 3 days after you become an ED happens COVID, you might want to talk about struggle a little bit. And there were times in my last 19 months of doing this of where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I had to be okay with that because that's the growth that needs to happen for me and for me to learn what I'm doing. But also, handling a family in COVID, having a child that's doing digital learning and is a people person and can't be with people. And how do you deal with that? Um, in some of the most pivotal years of for her, that was hard. Um, and so I think, taking every day as it's here's at 24 hours, that's all I can do anything about right now. Some days it was just that. But also, I was able to rely on a lot of my DBT skills and just honestly, just a lot of self awareness about myself. good and bad, and being able to use that as, okay, these are moments of growth.
Thank you. Jerlano.
Um, hmm, uh, I guess it's well, this is what I know. My foundation, my foundation has to be strong, and when I say my foundation has to be strong, is allowing other people to help me, allowing other people to tell me truth when I don't want to hear it, allowing people to reach their hand even though I didn't ask for it. You know what I'm saying? To help. My help come for me. Help comes from every direction, every angle. I might see a person down the street, a stranger, willing to help me, don't even know me from my holding wall. You know what I'm saying? So keeping my foundation strong, being understanding that I'm still dealing with mental health, I'm still dealing with substance abuse, that I'm being honest with myself. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not trying to stray. That I got this thing down perfect. Like no, I don't. Just like Miss Donna said, it's still growth. We're still growing. Being growing doesn't just end. You know what I'm saying? It might be just a lifetime journey. So I'm that's why I tell people I'm still in it. You know what I'm saying? I'm still in it to win it because I'm still keeping my foundation. I'm still remembering my past and keeping understanding that my glory is not just to be reached, but to be understanding that I am gonna be better. I don't have to be in that position I was years ago when I was younger. I don't have to be vulnerable. That I can be a strong individual and keep my work ethic good and my foundation and the people around me a strong foundation as well.
Mm. I love it. Openness, willingness to learn, willingness to say I need help or just accept help. Those are such great answers. And those are strength. I wasn't raised with that notion of strength, but I needed to be. So Donna, how can people support the Community Empowerment Fund?
So, there's always the monetary thing, and that's always on our website. But I also think that one of the things that I'm really valuing that we're being very invested in is, so the people that do our work are called advocates. They are volunteers coming for training to learn how to do this work. And what I've learned to value is we always get students. However, I'm always greatly surprised when we get people from the community that want to do this work, because I think people don't value and don't realize that there's a lot of value that can come from people that have had life experiences, that have worked, that have seen pitfalls and seen good things to be able to help someone else along that path. And so I am very invested in our community advocates, because of that experience. And just, yeah, definitely that is a way that people can also support us. We always put our application and training on our website and try to put it out on our social media and things like that. But yeah, just having people that have had some experience with life be able to come in, be trained and learn, and just learn to help and be in relationship with people. But also to be thinking about the causes of um, the members of our community that are experiencing things like housing insecurity, and advocating for those things in our city governments, in our county governments, in places of where, when new housing projects are done, thinking about, especially with some of our members of our community that are suffering with mental health issues, may be on those strict and fixed incomes. And those are the people that are hardest to house because their incomes are so limited. And so we need to be fighting to make sure that those people are getting included when there's a affordable housing project, to make sure that they can get housed. The one thing that I know about our homeless and housing system is that we're dedicated to a housing first model, which says that we house someone, and from that place, people can get their supports. They can have their mental health supports. They can have good nutrition. They can, be able to take their medicines to do all of those things that they need to do. And it's very harder and impossible to do that unhoused. So that those are always the things that I'm saying. Think about what's being done in our community and advocate for the person that is getting the least amount of resources.
I love housing first models. I worked in supportive housing all through the 90s, and it used to be that to get housed, to get any kind of supportive housing, well, that's great. You've got to get on your meds, stop drinking, show us this, show us that.
Yep.
all while you're homeless. So get on that list. Good luck. Housing first, put it the other way around. Well, let's give you a place to live, and then maybe those services will be easier for you to master and those skills. So yeah, good stuff there. Jerlano, this question leads more to you, I think. What ideas do you have to get members of the community together, such as in Milwaukee?
I'm trying. What's this question again?
What ideas do you have? Yeah, I'll read it again. What ideas do you have to get members of the community together to make things happen, such as in Milwaukee? I think Minneapolis is what she meant.
Okay. Go like Milwaukee. You know what I'm saying? I like I said, every city's different. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own little lingo and stuff like that. But still, the groundwork, as Miss Donna called it has to start from somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Even though it might look like it's small or inadequate, it's something that's important because it's a start for something that's greater or bigger than you will ever think it will be. You know what I'm saying? And the hope and willing that things will improve. We need a lot of work. The United States, this whole world need a lot of work. It took us years to be where we at. You know what I'm saying? And will it take years to get out of it? It might take another years to get out of it. But same time is hope for something that's a future that's brighter. You know what I'm saying? We got young ones coming out here. I for myself, I don't want young people to see this stuff no more. Do you know what I'm saying? You see the homeless crisis. You see people getting treated a certain way. You know what I'm saying? They looking at you, they're looking down at you because of your status. That's not humanity. You know what I'm saying? I look at you because what I think of you. You're a human being. That's what I'm supposed to think of you. You know what I'm saying? Regardless what you coming from. You're a human being, you got feelings, you got family, you got a background, you got likes, you got dislikes. Let's have a real conversation. And it actually have truth in it. Instead of just saying, we'll let it be next week. Oh, we let it give it to this person. Well, make some people give money to certain organizations. You deal with it. No, we all should deal with it. Not just one. That's the problem right now. I'm gonna let this person deal with it. Why aren't you dealing with it? Because it affects you too. I don't care if you just want to stay in your home. I know we was on lockdown on COVID-19, but it still affects every last one of us, period. What are you gonna do?
Right. There's a gentleman in Fayetteville named Sonny Kelly, and he did, I guess you'd call it a one-act play where he played himself and his son talking about this is what happens when you see a police officer, and this is how you must act if you see a police officer, and warning him. And the boy in the play is young, and he's like, well, why? I thought police officers were there to help me, and why would I have to be that way? And I would love to live in a world where that play doesn't even make sense. You know, I would love that. But yeah, I think just the authentic conversations. Someone in the chat box also mentioned formation of a George Floyd Center in Raleigh. I think Christy Banks wrote about that. So it sounds like there might be some momentum here at home that we can try to focus on. We'll get that information either in the chat box or as a follow-up email, but thank you for that question. And Donna, do you have thoughts about it?
I had heard about the center. I know that his family is very intentional about wanting to do things in his home state. And so they're in the very beginnings of talks around design and what to do and where it would be. I think it's a beautiful idea. Um, it will be interesting to see if it gets to fruition without resistance. Unfortunately, I think we are a lot of times a state that just resists things, whether it makes sense or not that we resist things, we resist things. Um, and my hope is that, there is this grassroots momentum that we want this to happen and it will go well. Um, but also, I think that same grassroots movement will fight for it to come to fruition. So I think it's going to be a beautiful thing.
All right. Yeah, we definitely need to be playing a long game. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. There's a little bit of a lull, so I want to draw your attention to our program next week. Please join us. We will have Governor's Award winner John Widener, a veteran, and 2 other veterans from NAMI South Mountains. They'll be sharing their stories and talking about the award that John Widener won. Also, please fill out our survey. When you leave this Zoom, a Survey Monkey survey will magically appear. Give us some feedback if you enjoyed tonight's program, or if you have suggestions, didn't enjoy it, let us know that too. Your feedback will help us improve over time, and it gives us something to show our funders that we're measuring our quality. Real important stuff there. And lots of good comments in the chat box. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Thank you, Gary. Is that Martin Luther King Jr.? It's a wonderful quote. So panelists, do you have any closing statements?
I just really appreciated being here. Yeah, my hope for the world is that we live in a world of where, we're taking the person most affected by everything we're doing, and that's the person we're fighting for, and that's what we're doing for, whether that's with mental health, whether that's trauma, whether that's substance use disorder, that we're really thinking about that there are people behind these things and how do we help people. And, that's the world I want to be in. That's why I do the things that I do.
For me is anyone that's at the lowest point, help bring them up. You know what I'm saying? Just like Miss Donna said, it might take a long time to get that person where they want to go, but at least you're doing the effort. You're doing the step work. You know what I'm saying? That we believe that we all could be in good working order. All of us. That we have a chance to be. That we deserve the right to be. Because everybody got hopes, they got dreams, they want to do something. They like people like to paint, people like to hike, or people like to do architectural work. Anything you want to do that you have the ability to understand, you have hope to do it. Either you going through mental health or substance abuse, that you have hope to be something that you want to be in your life. That nothing will not stop you, that you will actually accomplish something and keep growing. You know what I'm saying? That's my hope, that we all keep growing regardless of what we're going through. Thank you.
All right, I'll comment in the chat. We need to have Donna and Jerlano here every week. I think they might get bored with us, guys, but I do like the sentiment. So beautiful. Keep going with your hope. All right, that was also from the chat box. Well, again, I want to thank Jerlano and Donna for your very inspiring words and your incredible journeys that you've told us about tonight. I really got a lot out of tonight's conversation, so thank you for that. And everyone else, again, tune in next week, fill out our survey. Please be well in the week ahead. And remember, it's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to struggle and ask for support. We are here to listen. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.